And we begin. So, Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah. Allahumma arina al-haqqa haqqan warzuqna ittiba'ah, wa arina al-batila batilan warzuqna ijtinabah, wa salli Allahumma wa sallim ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in, walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Welcome to the second session of our professional development with the OMA. Today we will be talking mostly about assessment. So before we get into the different tools that I can get through, show you how to use them, let's first talk about what does assessment mean and what's the difference between assessment and evaluation. In educational theory, education, this is rooted in Islamic education as well. Education is a two-way street. A teacher teaches, but then in the same time as the teacher is teaching the student, the teacher is also assessing. And assessing, the Arabic word is taqeem, is in general, there are three parts to assessment. If any of you has experience teaching with the Ottawa Public School Board, they use these same three methods of assessment. Or even if you read classical texts about Islamic pedagogy, about the science of learning or the art of learning Islamic knowledge, since the time of Imam al-Khatib al-Baghdadi and Adab al-Alim wal-Muta'allim and books by Imam Ghazali and others, you'll find these three types of assessment. It's a universal understanding. There is something that is done while teaching, and this is called in recent English is called formative assessment. In the simple words in the school board, they call it assessment as learning, which is basically you're doing a real-time assessment to the class, to the students, and to yourself as you are conducting your class. And that, I ask a question, as we just did, and then nobody answered, right? So I'm not a robot. I don't just continue talking. It's like, okay, nobody's answering. It might be that people are just slow to start in. Let me try to simplify this question, right? This is an example of real-time assessment. Assessment, as I said, is different than evaluation. Evaluation is basically when you are judging the student's production, creation or work or memorization, and then you're putting a mark or you're putting a feedback or you're putting something in return. Assessment is not that. Assessment is you making cognitive, something in your mind, making deductions or making feedback about the nature of the class. Typically, the goal of the assessment is to improve the educational experience between you and the student, to make sure that you are teaching better, you're a better teacher, and that the student is learning better. Evaluation is when you are assessing basically the final result of the student. So you want to get a grade out of it, so you do a test. That's kind of an example of evaluation. Let's go back to the three modes of assessment. They say there is assessment in the basically in the real time as learning. There is the assessment of learning, which is the final, which is called summative assessment, which translates to evaluation, as I just explained. And then there is one in between, which is analytical assessment. And that's the one where it's, as a teacher, you always struggle with. You have two students, one got 90 and one got 90. But in your heart, this person is a mountain ahead of this person. It could be their initiative, their responsibility, their character, and those analytical assessment or types of assessment are important, are very important in a teacher. It's the fault of the educational system that doesn't put them in the evaluation most of the time. But alhamdulillah, as you see your own children as well, report cards have been evolving as more science is getting. Here in Ontario, alhamdulillah, the OCDSB has a very good report card system. You don't just get grades, you get grades, you get a descriptive, which is an analytical assessment. So you get, okay, your child shares with teammates, has responsibility, has initiative, has self discipline, these kind of things. So you get both of these in the report card, which is a much better way of assessment. But again, the three, I repeat them again. The first method of assessment as learning, which is formative assessment, known also. That's the type of when you are checking on yourself and checking on the student. You explain something, and then you look at the eyes, you see the body language, raised eyebrows, shrugs. You assess. If the majority of the class did not understand, then I'm going to make a decision based on this and re-explain the whole topic, right? Or give another example. Or maybe I see some students who got it and some students who didn't get it. So I ask the students who got it to get up and practice this so that they can show that they understood. And those who didn't understand get the chance to hear it twice. So this is how naturally you do it. You're probably all fantastic teachers. You do this without having to do a PhD on educational psychology, right? Naturally, a good teacher sees, okay, if a weak student is struggling, I explain the concept, the good student understands it, I ask the good student to repeat or to practice or to come to the whiteboard and write, so that students who need it twice will get it. And then I bring a student who got it after the first attempt and bring it. And so hopefully the students who need it 3 times will get it, and so on. So this is called assessment as learning. We're doing it in real time. A similar mode of assessment of this type of assessment is what I sent you on this document I shared again on the group. I'm not sure if the people who joined later are able to see the link I posted. That's something I don't know about this Google Meet. But let me ask somebody, Sister Azza, I think you joined after. Are you able to see the Google Drive link that I shared at 6:35? Or maybe Brother Ali also joined after. I'm not sure if he also joined after that. Can anyone confirm or deny in the chat on this session, in the chat on the right?
No, I don't see a link. So I joined after and it's not there.
Okay, so I'm going to share it again. Okay. Okay. And in this link is a document. I've sent it already to some of the teachers already received it. But if you open it, you'll find a recording of the last lecture. You'll find an assignment for you to do in the last 2 days. You should have done some practice at least. It is a self, assessment. This is a self type of assessment to check that you understood the material. So you are checking that you can do all of these. And then the third thing, there's a feedback survey. So if I can ask you, it's a 1-minute survey, has I think only 4 questions. If you can click on the form and write that answer that survey. Now, this survey, I'm not giving you marks for it, so it's not It's not an assessment. It's not a summative assessment. It's not a form of evaluation, and it's not a way for me to build as to judge your character either. It's not for me to understand deeply your character. The main purpose of this assessment was to understand, was my first session a success in the factors that how many people actually understood and benefited from the first lecture, right? So the feedback is for me as a teacher, and also to see as a learning environment, was that good? So how many of you, if you finished writing the survey, answering that survey in the link, press 1, and I will say thank you. Jazakumullah khairan. You can type in if you finished, so you can see how many people have finished it. I can also send directly the link of the inside document. So this is the link of the survey, and I will be sending. So this is that I did after session 1, and then I will be doing another survey after today's session to assess how much you benefited from today's lecture. Okay. So in summary, what we have talked so far, we talked about the meaning of assessment. The assessment is a pillar of the study of education. That basically it's the feedback loop that closes in and improves the educational experience. Without assessment, we can be very bad or irrelevant teachers and never learn from our mistakes, which is, of course, and it doesn't fit well neither with our deen nor with our character or goals. We want to always be improving the way we teach, and we always want to improving our own knowledge and improving our deen as well. We said there are 3 types of assessment. Can someone try to guess, try to remember maybe all 3, if not maybe 2 of the 3, just to help me here, inshallah ta'ala?
Are you referring to the real-time, summative, and analytical?
Yes. Allah yazikum khair. So these are the 3 types. So there, I'm just going back to the OCDSB, and I think they call them assessment as of in learning. I can't find it, but it's usually in report cards and in material from the OCDSB. In education science, it's called formative assessment, diagnostic assessment, and summative assessment. So I've used interchangeable words. I apologize if I confuse you. Formative assessment helps you form an idea about your teaching success and teaching effectiveness. So we do formative assessment. I go and ask Sister Iman, did you understand what I just said? And then Sister Iman says yes, or says not really, or says I understood this and didn't understand this. I'm not doing this to give Sister Iman a score. I'm doing this to understand if my, the way I'm teaching right now is effective and that people are teaching. So assessment of learning, as you this form, which is formative assessment, is basically I don't need to know you, right? You see in this Google form, I didn't even ask about your name. I just need to know if you were a student who attended the first lecture, what was your impression? So it's not personalized. It's about the educational experience. That's typical in formative assessment. That you don't ask people for their student name. You do it as an anonymous survey. You just want to know because you want it to be honest, right? You want to say like, okay, if you have, did I do something wrong? Did I teach in a way that, is there something you thought the teacher was not effective in teaching, right? And you want the student to not feel coerced or forced to say nice things. You give anonymity to give them this a sense of comfort that what they can speak their mind freely because you need their honest advice, right? So this first type of assessment, we're calling it formative assessment. And as you can see, I use a very simple tool, which is Google Forms. If you have all Google Forms, you can simply go to forms.google.com, and then you can create a form similar to the one I created, right? Now, with diagnostic assessment, diagnostic assessment is always qualitative in the sense that it's not about marks, it's not about yes and no. It's about looking at the degrees of the character of the student or the understanding of a student. Diagnostic assessment includes both something for the whole classroom and also a part that is personalized, right? I can do a diagnostic assessment and say, you know what? I have noticed that if I teach a class after lunch break, students don't do as well. They just got fed, blood flow is in their stomach, their brains are not focusing really well. Or they were just hyper playing in their recess and they came back and they're not paying attention. They're physically active, but their mind is not concentrating. So this is a diagnostic assessment, right? I'm feeling like, okay, perhaps if I have the room, if I have the ability to request to shift the hours of teaching so that, or the hours of the recess, so that we can make sure that the students, when they're learning, they have full concentration. Or, another very common example is that if you teach early in the morning, you get students who are hungry, who have not had breakfast. And I know, and I've seen, and I studied so many teachers who invest in this so much that they bring with them, apples or bananas with them every day, because they know there's, a third of the class statistically come to any given day having missed breakfast. Either they woke up too late, or their parents were rushed, or something, or maybe they were actually from a low-income neighborhood that or a family that it was difficult for them to make breakfast that day. And so you want to make sure that the student is not hungry. If they're hungry in the morning, they're not going to understand your, Quran, or concentrate on memorization, or understand your Arabic, or whatever it is that you're teaching them. So this is a way of diagnostic assessment. I'm doing it for the entire classroom. Yes, diagnostic is actually uses both. So formative is only about the environment, as I explained. Diagnostics uses the environment, but also uses a personal touch. I also want to have, the best way also sounds the hardest for diagnostic assessment is that you keep a diary. You keep your own notebook, journal, right? Agendas, teachers' agendas, that you say, okay, today, student X came to class, was very sleepy, groggy, and grumpy, and they were usually a successful student, but today it was not. It wasn't them. So I write a note in my diary. It's like, okay, check with parents. Maybe turns out they had a sleepover and at their cousins and watched movies until 3 in the morning, which is a bad thing, right? It's gonna get enforced. But so you have a diagnostic per student. You keep it to yourself. You say, okay, why is this student learning so well? So you want to see that, so you can learn. How come this student loves this material? I want to sit with the parents. I want to see what are they preparing mentally the student? Is there like a prize associated? Do they love coming to the class because their parents pick them after class and they go play and eat ice cream or whatever it is? You want to do diagnostic to the positive experiences in class so that you can, propagate it, and hopefully the students who are struggling, you can teach them ways to improve. But also you want to do diagnostic of the poor students and their performance and see what is it. Why can't they perform as well, right? As teachers, your position is that you can't believe that a student comes to you and cannot change, right? Like this is completely against your entire existence as a teacher. You're there to change people's minds. You're there to make people grow and evolve and improve and everything. Yeah. So you can't. No teacher like looks at the class and says, "Oh, these 5 students, I don't care about them learning." And that unfortunately happens when the teacher is overworked and underpaid and the short staffed and you have 50 students in a classroom. But yeah, alhamdulillah, from my short experience with the 3 schools with the OMA, that's not the case. Alhamdulillah, we have small class sizes. Teachers love their students and students love their teachers, and it's a very positive environment. And so you want to make sure everyone is maximizing their methods. The way you do this, you do this with diagnostic assessment. The final type of the 3 types of assessment, which is summative assessment, is where you want to reach a decision about the progress of learning, right? So you're going to do a type of an exam or evaluation. It can be in written, it can be in oral, it can be in doing a project. So many different ways of evaluation. Some evaluations are actually implicit. So you want to, part of your teaching, let's say, if Sister Asma, mashallah, is in her own maybe personal goals as a teacher or in her school's goals, they want the teacher to memorize this many surahs of Quran, but they want students by the end of the semester to be better as team players, right? Or better as more responsible as individuals. And so that can be an implicit evaluation, not like put the student under the spotlight and say, show me your teamwork skill, but rather give them a project or give them a homework activity, or just ask to do something in the class and then observe and take notes and say, I'm doing evaluation now. So this student is doing really well about sharing resources, if they're coloring together, about checking on if somebody needs help next to them at the same table, etc. So you're doing evaluation as students are not paying attention. And of course, the most common way of evaluation is that when you are giving a test to the student, written or oral or take-home essay or whatever that would be, inshallah ta'ala. طيب. Again, so I'm taking a little break here, and then I want to reevaluate with everyone, assess with everyone what do you understand so far about the 3 modes of assessment, and if you have any questions about any of these 3 modes of how we can improve it or how we can actually measure it. So I'm opening the mic for 1 minute, inshallah ta'ala, for questions.
I have a question.
Okay.
For the last one of the assessments, um, does it contain, like, if I give them a test, a written or oral, it also, I just mix it up. It also contain the teamwork and how he helped his friends or all of these things. It's both of them under the same assessment.
Category.
Oh,
So
category.
yeah, so in general, diagnostic is about you understanding, within the learning environment, how are students understanding. So it includes looking at the environment of the learning at the classroom, the environment of the teaching, as well as every individual student and their case. So you can look at in your diagnostic and say, it appears that student Y or student Z is not effectively learning because they seem to have a problem with they're stubborn or they're not a good team player, right? So you're doing a diagnostic as from the name, right? But and then according to this diagnostic, you're going to put it's going to impact the way you teach in the future, or maybe you would request to meet with them outside class hours or with their parents and say, look, this seems to be a character impurity or something in their character that is hindering their knowledge. They're such a good student if they could only work on their this or that, right? Their temper or their whatever, attitude issues. So this is all under a diagnostic. Summative is when you're making a decision, usually often a final decision. So summative assessment is when you are, okay, you're doing a report card, right? And you want to send it to the parents, or you want to do test, or you have an award at the end of a certain juz memorization or certain surah. You have to check, okay, did everyone finish? You want to actually make a decision. Who finished the best? Who finished the second? Who did the third? Summative assessment is about making this. It's what we call evaluation. What we call putting exams, oral tests, whatever it is. The summative is about testing what are our learning outcomes, right? What do we want to learn this semester or this month or this week, right? Depending how frequent your summative assessments, always there's a final summative assessment for the whole course, but then maybe you have a daily summative assessment, to test that they have learned what they learned today. They have a weekly summative assessment for revision of the week. You have a monthly, whatever is your teaching pedagogy, the style of your teaching, right? Every time you do a summative assessment, you have goals, right? Like, okay, common goals on Quran are memorization, tajweed, and what's the third? SubhanAllah, I haven't taught Quran in so long. Memorization, tajweed, and is it tafsir? Tafsir? No. Memorization, tajweed, and a third, which I, SubhanAllah, forget. And so these are my goals. So I'm going to do a summative test to test these three areas of knowledge, right? But I'm saying that summative is all depends on the goals you set from the beginning. So if my school or my classroom, the goals I have in this class, that okay, I'm gonna make sure that for this course from September to December, everyone in my class is gonna be significantly better in obeying their parents, okay? Or maybe I want them to make sure that they are better in salah, right? So I put this as a learning outcome, as a teacher. I want as a success criteria. So at the end, I want to test the students actually become better in their salah or better in their treatment to salah. So I have to put a form of evaluation. Either ask the parents themselves, or either observe them how they talk to their parents, or how they pray. You put a method of evaluation so that you can make a final decision. Student A succeeded, student B succeeded at 70%, student C did not succeed in learning this goal. Is that correct? You understand why I gave this example? Typically, inshallah ta'ala, whether it is a character or it's a subject matter, inshallah ta'ala, it's what you usually what you test it with is usually at summative. So quick review, because I want these three to be settled, inshallah ta'ala. Allah yibari fikum. The formative assessment is when I'm doing istiqra. Let's call it istiqra, right? I'm doing an assessment to what's like a Bismillah. Yes, Brother Ali, help me with the word.
Yeah, so areas of improvement.
Yes. I want to feel I want to sense the current base level of understanding, or find areas for improvement, either for me as a teacher, or for the student, or for the whole classroom environment. But informative, I only care about. I don't care about personalized.
Anonymous is
Yeah, it's usually anonymous. It's not personalized. I'm only caring about, am I teaching to the class? Are the class understanding? Is this a good learning environment? Right? This is what my formative assessment. If I'm teaching and then I find that every time every time I'm connecting, the students can't hear me well. I can't hear them well. There's a problem with my internet. This is something from as early as in my formative assessment. I'm just making the first assessments. Can they hear me? Can they understand me? Well, it looks like I need a better headset, or a better mic, or faster internet connection, or a better camera, right? These are technology related formative assessment. But also I say, like, okay, I'm speaking too fast, or I'm speaking too slow. I'm losing 1/3 of the students. They're too busy. So maybe my voice is monotonic. I need to engage more. Maybe I give nicer examples that engage the students. So many different ways. But as Brother Ali, the formative assessment I'm doing it is to gauge the effectiveness of my teaching. Right? Best thing to do. I've been teaching for now 7 years at the University of Ottawa. Alhamdulillah, I teach about like 200 to 300 students a year. And so multiple thousands of students I've come across. Every single class, I have a quiz for them. And the quiz, in most cases, is formative. So I ask them, what did you understand when we talked about this, when we discussed this, right? And they think, it's not necessary for you to explain to the student that they're getting a mark or they're not getting a mark on this. But I'm asking them to see, like, did they actually get what I explained well? Maybe there's like some nuance, some daqa'iq, nafa'is, some nuances in this field. Did they understand it fully? And so I would say like about 70 to 80% of my quizzes, they don't result in grades to the students. They only result in, okay, you know what? Most students did not get what I explained last lecture. Next lecture, I'm going to repeat it. It's just for me to understand how this teaching method is going. The second diagnostic, we said, it's about trying to analyze deeper level of knowledge, a deeper level of understanding, not just at the whole environment, but also specifically at students. And then summative is definitely just about the students, right? You do report cards per student. You don't do like learning environment summative assessment. You don't test the building. You just test the people, right? So that's basically the three methods of assessment. Okay. Now that we have explained them, I will show you a very simple tool, which I've already shown you, which is Google Form, and how actually what appears to be a simple tool can be very, very, has so much intricate detail and can be very complex and can be used to help with the three methods of assessment. Okay. Bismillah. So let us let us do, how do I share my, here you go. So this is, I use Google Chrome browser. I recommend everyone to use Google Chrome browser. It's more secure than every other browser on the market. It's fast, and it integrates really well with our what's it called? Google Suite that we have for the Ottawa Mosque. So here on the top right, that's my account, DCE at ottawamosque.ca. I also have all the apps that I have through the Ottawa Mosque. So Google Meet, Google Slides for making presentations, Google Docs, Google Sheets, and Google Drive. I have unlimited storage and then my calendar, plus all these extra things that are enabled through Google, and of course Google Classroom that we talked about, right? And Jamboard that I also talked about. I want to go to Google Forms, right? So I'm going to click here, and then this is my Google Forms. This is the form that I just made for you. Starting from the beginning, there are, you can look at this. We have a blank quiz. There is a template for an exit ticket. An exit ticket is a form of formative assessment. Exit ticket is basically a quiz that you tell the students if they finish it, they're free to leave the classroom. That's what the what the exit ticket means. And you can put it. Let's look at the form of an exit ticket here. This comes as a pre-made template. So before you leave class today, answer the following questions: name, email. You can change, of course, whatever you want. What's one important thing you learned in class today? Did you feel prepared for today's lesson? Why or why? Or why not? Okay, right? And what would help make today's lesson more effective, right? 3 questions that are for your own learning, helps you understand more class. Now, in a primary years, you probably put the name as a teacher because you want, students are young, so you want to make sure that there's discipline. You know that who finished, and then you allow them. I teach university, and so they're supposed to be responsible. So I don't put that. I say just if you finished, leave. And even if they lied and didn't finish and left without finishing, it's not my that's their own character, right? I have to teach them that I trust them, right? That's something that I teach them by example. And if they abuse that trust, and inshallah they can learn at one point. It's not the subject of our discussion now. So this is an exit ticket, right? Let me close this and go back. Oops, did I close the whole thing? Let me just share the whole window, so that the whole screen. Sorry, here. Okay, so we're back to the screen sharing. Yes, and so that's an example of exit ticket, right? Google has made it really easy for you to make a simple formative assessment for daily, like every day you teach, right? There's another example here for it's called just assessment. And I want to see what it has. So this is a generic assessment when it says lorem ipsum dolor sit amet. This is just it has a funny history where that came from, but it's words that mean nothing, and it's just you want to fill whatever subject this is about. They already put you a nice picture here that looks like it's a schoolwork. Name, email, put a quiz question, and then your first question here, option 1, correct answer, option 2, 3, and then second question that is check. There's a correct answer. I'm going to come back to here to the correct and non-correct answers, right? And then a third question, and then you can do some more explanation, like give them a paragraph or an ayah or something, and then based on the text above, fourth question, right? There's already a preset template for you to make so what appears to be a simple quiz. Now here you have a total points 2. Now I'll come more in that detail, but before I go, do you see this section in the bottom here where I give the student a text and then I asked them questions to like, what's your understanding based on a text? This can be a method of diagnostic assessment. I'm diagnosing their or analyzing their understanding to a paragraph. If part of my class is to for example, read the Quran, and I'm going to put them like few ayat here, and understand the Arabic words of the Quran. So I put them few ayat and say, based on this few ayat, describe what you understand or something. Then I'm diagnosing their understanding. Now, I could put a point on it, I could put a mark on it, or I don't have to. I'm just doing this to keep in record. A parent will come and tell me, why did my son get 70%? I say, here you go. I have a dossier for every student, right? So I have a file. Here's my comments. The student, your son, your daughter, would sleep through class, or is not attentive, doesn't do well in teamwork. We've tried to email you this time, that time. You have a record, right? And we've done these readings. Look at how your son understands, how your daughter understands. When I give them this ayah and they say, what does it mean? And this is diagnostic. You have it as proof in the educational process. You can put a mark on it, or you just use it as additional evidence for the education of the child, right? I want to go back to the points, because points mean that it's summative, right? That's the only thing that requires points, is a summative assessment. So here, there's a first question, and then there's an answer key. So this one is marked as the correct answer, right? It has been pre-marked for you, that you put the first question to be wrong, the first answer, second answer right, third answer wrong, fourth answer wrong, right? And then it's worth 1 point. So I'm going to show you how you do that. Yeah, you turn Google Forms from a surveying tool that's only like formative or diagnostic, to a summative form where you can do evaluation. So you actually, instead of you going and marking individually, the student who clicks on this immediately gets the point. So they get automatic grading. And life becomes so much better for a teacher when you find ways to automate summative assessments. Because as you all know, I have never met a teacher who loves marking. It's a very difficult process. It's very important, and you can't deny how important it is, but it's always very, very tedious, right? You have to mark the same questions over and over for many students, depending how many students you have. So we're going to look at other examples, okay? And then I want to look at another template. We're still looking at templates here. We have a worksheet. So worksheet is another form of doing something diagnostic. Basically, I am giving them something to work on and watching them learn, right? I'm giving them a worksheet, say like, here's an ayah, or here's I don't know, maybe I don't know how you do it in Quran, yani. Maybe I can put an ayah with blanks and then say like, okay, work on filling the blanks. Or here's an ayah, and then I say, okay, I highlight some words and I say, what are the meanings of those words, depending on their level of education, of course, right? And if it's Arabic or if it's Islamic education, then it's much simpler, because language and subjects there's so many things to do diagnostic assessment for. So this is a worksheet. I'm preparing it. Again, I'm doing a reading, and then I'm putting an image, and then I'm asking them questions about this image, or I'm asking them questions about this reading. And then, it's going to be like a 10-minute to 20-minute activity. Maybe involves teamwork if I want to also diagnose their teamwork, or sharing, collaboration skills, communication, professionalism, work ethic. These all come from a simple teamwork project. So this is a worksheet template. And then last but not least, you have a course evaluation. So from its title, it means that this is a final summative form of assessment. So there's a name of a class, since if you have several classes, you can have the same form. And then name of the instructor, right? So you want to double check. So you can put it from a drop-down menu. Oh, so this, my apologies. I understood this wrong. Sorry. This is a course evaluation. You're providing, the students are doing summative assessment of their teachers, right? Or of the course and the teachers. So this is usually standard in all educational institutions, that the principal, they have maybe a vice principal who are working with to make sure that the teachers are up to the standard. You also want to get the feedback of students, right? So students would be writing the class name, the instructor, level of effort you put into the course. So there is some level of self-assessment to how serious I am, or how knowledgeable I am about the course. You can say something like percentage of classes attended. You can put something like the grade that you got at the end of the course, or have been getting at the course. So this is the first one, is a self-assessment, just to know, is this a person who's coming out of a very confident position as their opinion, they're of the top students of the class, or are they of the students who've been having challenges through the class. It's a very important first part of the evaluation. Then we talk about contribution to learning. Let's look at that. So my skill level at the start of the course, how was it? At the end of the course, my level required to complete the course, and a contribution, of course, to your skill knowledge. So again, I'm assessing, it's self-assessment. The student is writing, okay, I didn't know anything, and the course is over, and I know a lot, or I knew something and I didn't improve much. But then now you start asking about the instructor. So these are typical statements. You find them across different universities. Instructor was an effective lecturer, demonstrator. Strongly agree, strongly disagree. Presentations were clear. Instructor stimulated student interest. Instructor effectively used the time during the class. Instructor was available and helpful. Grading was prompt and had useful feedback. So these are very standard. It's actually only 6. There's a standard list of 13 statements about feedback to instructors. Yeah, I can also share them if the schools want to implement this. But of course, this is done. You don't want any. This feedback goes 2 ways, to the teachers as well as to the principals. The teachers and the principals need to work on this together. It shouldn't be portrayed in a way that the administration is doing this behind the backs of the teachers, or in a way of scaring, intimidating the teachers that, oh, if you're not doing well, if the students say you're a bad teacher, we're going to let you go. It's not used that way, but it's used as a way okay, we have together a common goal, that the school standard of education becomes better. And so while it's not perfect, getting the feedback from the students is one way of looking at how we can improve things, right? It shouldn't be taken as it's a revelation, يعني صح? And you'll find statistically things, there's tawatur, right? If all the students say this teacher is really good and this course is really good, it's different when all the students say this teacher is really hard and this course is really hard, right? So if there was one student who say, I don't like this teacher and stuff, and everyone else says good, you can easily understand that this was a personal thing that the students wanted to say. And perhaps that can be dealt on a personal basis, right? Again, we have here course content evaluation. What aspects of the course were most useful? How would you improve the course? And why did you choose this course? If it was a required course, or the time availability of this course, or I'm interested in it. So you also gauge some of these aspects. So this is another template that I would recommend all the schools to adopt and build on, inshallah ta'ala, to improve their education. Having explained all of this, inshallah ta'ala, I'm going to show you, this is the final thing, I'm going to show you how to create a quiz. So you can create a form, which is the blank here. You can also create a blank quiz, right? Now, you can create a blank form and turn it into a quiz later on. It's just a quick setting in the back. But I'm going to create a blank quiz. So this quiz, here you go. I'm going to call it, like, for example, اختبار Surah Al-Fatiha. And then like it's a test for Surah Al-Fatiha, right? And then I have the first question say, how many verses is Surah Al-Fatiha, right? And then I have, let's say, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? And then I click on the 7. I click on answer key. Answer key. And then I click on the 7 to make it the correct one. I want to choose how many points will they get if they answer this correctly. You get 1 point, right? This is a required question. Okay? And then another, I forgot something really important before I started, which was supposed to be the student's name, right? So once I do name, Google immediately, okay, I didn't show you. But here we have, this is a multiple choice, right? If I say email, Google immediately understands what I'm filling and immediately switched it to a short answer. And the suggestion here was to enable email collection setting, which is, it would make the whole form closed until they sign into Google. I don't want this, but it's already been suggested to switch it to a short answer. If I change this and say, like date of birth, immediately switched, automatically Google understood that I want the date of birth, so it gave me an option to do day, month, year, right? This is just a side note on like how Google has some useful AI. So I want name and perhaps email. Email is going to be not required, okay? So how many verses Surah Al-Fatiha? That's 1 point. I can duplicate if I want to do another multiple choice, maybe. So let's say, which verse is the most important of them, right? So, and then I gotta put them 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So I put it here as number 4, right? إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. I mean, I don't know how, if that's the level of students you're teaching, right? But I didn't bother putting a new answer key. I just duplicated the first question, use the same answer key, and I can do a quick randomization here like this. Or, much simpler, I can do shuffle option order, right? Which means that every other student will see the answers different, right? So this is something that I can do by default, that they don't see the answer 6, 7, 8, 9. Every different student sees the answer differently. It depends on if you want that or not. I can have one question that would say, describe some of the, or list some of the other names of Surah Al-Fatiha, right? And so I can put that as a paragraph if it's a long, or a short answer if it's a short. Now I can I want to put like 2 marks on this, or let's say 3 points on this. But it's always harder when you put an open question to make an automated answer key. Automated answer keys only work when in paragraphs or in short sentences, when there is one exact way of answering. And so if I say like, what's the first, here you go, like, what is the first name of Allah other than Allah, other than the name Allah mentioned in Al-Fatiha, right? And I'm gonna leave it here. So I put the answer key and I say, okay, Al-Rahman, and then I say like, okay, Ar-Rahman, maybe a different way, and then maybe Ar-Rahman, and then Al-Rahman. I want to make sure that different spellings are good, right? And then I can say mark all other answers are incorrect. And so the students will try one of these and says the correct answer could be this, right? But you can see there's always a room of error when you open a short answered text or long answered text. When you want Google to auto mark, right? Yeah, let's say that we've finished. We can do multiple sections. So it would be like first page for memorization questions, second page for vocabulary, third page for something. It's always good to, as a from teaching perspective, like a psychology perspective, you don't have more than 5 questions in a page. If you put more than 5 questions in a page, some studies show that students may have increased anxiety when they see a long form, and they might perform poorly. So 5 questions, and then you switch to another answer. Also, a good practice that I would do is that put a section here, so that a person who's coming in to start the test doesn't see the first 5 questions, right? So I put the first page as just the identifiers, right? And they have to finish it and go next before I can start like a test, right? Or first page of test or first section of the test. So they have to go next to it. Okay. This is simply how, and it says here on the top right, the total points a person can get is 6. And then I can, change the theme, change the colors, put a header image, make a background color that's different, change the font style to make something looks more playful, etc. This is all from the little color palette here. I can look as a preview. This is how it would look to the student. And then, so this is how my answer would be, and then I can submit, right? So this is just a preview, right? So it doesn't mark as a real answer. Now I can prepare it for the test. So for preferences, do I want to collect email addresses? When I click on this, it will not let anyone see the form unless they sign up to a Google account, right? A bit restricting, but we have unlimited emails, so I would not mind. It's not a difficult task. If any of the 3 schools want to consider creating an email address for every student, and this way they have a Gmail and communication can be through it. But I mean, what appears to me is that most of the students are very young for that, and you can just contact the parents. But that's one decision you can make on like a global decision on the form, is that you want everyone who joins has to sign in before they fill the form. It gives you more security and confidence about who's answering. It's not some random person from the internet, right? The second thing is that you want to make all questions required so that you don't mistakenly forget a question to be optional and then the students skip them. And then you want to make something easy. Say every new question I'm creating, I want the default point value to be out of 1, for example. So it's easier for you, instead of clicking every time you create, to set their answer, right? So these are a couple of the settings. The other thing here, which is also very important, is the setting here, the gear. Again, the same thing. I want to collect email addresses. There's also the setting to send them the receipt. So the receipt basically is that when they submit, they get an email with all the answers that they have done, right? So that's an option. You're free to choose it. I can restrict my responders to be users under the OMA organization. So if the case that all of the students in your class had email addresses at, let's say, Al-Fajr or Maqura or ss.automask, then in that case, we can even create like a we can create a global subdomain called students.alomas.ca and have all the students of all 3 schools under there. And then they have to log in with that specific email. They can't, somebody with a generic Gmail can't do it. I can limit to 1 response. If you say limit to 1 response, then they have to sign in. Basically, once they answer the test, they can't come back and answer the test again. So that's limiting every student to 1 response. Yeah, it's something good. Can they come back and edit after they submit? You don't want to do that for a quiz. Can they see the summary chart and the text responses? So if you're doing, this is beneficial if you're doing a team and you want everyone on the team to see the answers of everyone. Of course, you don't want the students to see the answers of everyone after they submit, right? You can show up, these are things about presentation, you can show a progress bar, which shows like, okay, now you've done 50%, depending on how many pages, only 2 pages. So, okay, finish 50%, you finish 100%. Or shuffle the questions order. So within the same section, it's not going to go out of the section, but within the same section, there are 5 questions. The students can get different question each time. When they submit, do you want them to have the option to submit another response? It says submit another response. You don't. Every student, you want them to submit only 1 response, so you can disable this. Finally, and last but not least, this is the setting that would actually switch Google form to a quiz. So even if you had started it as a form, just coming here and enabling this would make it a Google quiz, right? So you can do the auto marking, you can do assigned point values to questions. There's some really useful setting here. That's only if the case if the students, all the students were taking the exam, the test using a Chromebook, which of course, schools can get deals on them. Because they're built by Google, they have that security that you can turn on locked mode. Once the exams start, they can't exit and they can't switch the tabs. They're stuck on that quiz, right? So the respondents can't open tabs or other applications while taking the quiz. This is only available in schools that are using managed Chromebooks, which we don't have, but in the future, if any of the schools want to consider in making this investment, then as a Google partner, we are a charitable, we can get a discount on Chromebooks for students. You want the students to see their mark immediately after each submission. I would usually later, after manual review, but then that turns on email collection. But I would usually recommend that you go and manually revise and double check that everyone's grades are entered correctly. Maybe somebody wrote Ar-Rahman in Arabic in that question, got a 0 by Google's auto mark, but you go and correct it and you overwrite, right? And then you can see how they miss. So this is all the basics of a quiz. Inshallah ta'ala, the next final session, we will talk about the differences between doing assessment during class or teaching during class and then learning outside the class, so synchronous and asynchronous learning. And I will also introduce you to plugins to the assessment that can make this even more powerful. For example, just one example, is that we can actually have an add-on here that's and it's called Timify, which is now called Quillgo. And I can add, I can domain install it so that all of you can have it, and it would add a timer to the quiz, right? It says you have this many minutes left. So you can do a test that is timed, and they have like 3 minutes or 10 minutes or an hour. And once it runs out, then it will not allow them to continue, right? So there's examples. It's a free add-on, very powerful. And many other powerful add-ons. As I said, you think Google Forms is simple. What's amazing about it is that it's simple when you need it to be simple. But when you need more of it, it's got thousands of add-ons to make it really, really complex and very powerful, inshallah ta'ala. So with that, inshallah ta'ala, I will stop end the presentation, inshallah ta'ala. I apologize. Well, we started, I think at around 6:40. So we share the blame. Like I was there before the 7:30, but I need students to be present so I can start a presentation that is engaging, inshallah ta'ala. So if everyone's okay, it can take maybe 5 minutes extra of our time. And if you want to have any questions or comments, I'll be happily to share together, inshallah ta'ala, with you. I'll open the mic now for everyone, inshallah ta'ala. تفضلوا. Right, I remembered something. I wasn't looking at the chat. It looks like. Yes, you can add pictures as an answer. I didn't show you this, but it's so easy. Bismillah. Jazakallah khair. Yeah, that's a beautiful, beautiful. Like, there's nothing I love more in teaching than a teacher who's invested in making their classroom. I take joy in making my classes are enjoyable for students. So you can add image. You can see here, I can add image. And what's really amazing about this is that you can just easily search with Google. So you say number 6. And then here you go, you got 1,000 number 6, right? So I want to do like a funny number 6 for this, and then a funny number 7, and then I say number 7. And so you don't need to like go and upload and download and here you go, number 7, right? And so once you finish this, if you want to preview it, I haven't finished all the numbers, but you can just see. Must be a valid email address. I'm sorry. There you go. So here you go. You get the becomes like a pick the number, pick the picture, right? You click on the picture, you get the picture. You understand? So yes, it is powerful. You can have that, inshallah ta'ala. Jazakallah khair for the question. I'm gonna leave this. Yeah, it is cool. Yeah, mashallah. It's very powerful. I can tell you, I've actually done final exams to master's level university students last semester and this semester. So like in April we had final exams, and also in July for the summer semester. And I've had I was teaching an undergrad course and a grad course, and I was examining them on Google Forms. And some students were like, what, Google Forms is so easy, you can hack into it and see the correct answers and stuff. But of course, if you're well trained and know your game, you can. It's a very secure platform, and you can put so many options and put a time restriction and put even a window restriction. And I can introduce you to all of these, inshallah ta'ala, in the next session. There are so many ways you can create these solutions where you can have the environment that looks like they're taking a real exam, right? And beyond this exams that are written, I understand that a lot of you, because you teach Quran and Arabic and Islamic studies, you need to do some oral examination. So inshallah ta'ala, that's something we can talk about on Saturday, to talk about where we can put assessment that can record the students' audio or even video, and then you can take these to listen to them or watch them and make grades on them, inshallah ta'ala. That's available actually in Google Classroom built in, but I can show you some of the methods to do that, inshallah ta'ala. Jazakillah khair, Sister Asma, Allah yabarik fikum. And
I have a question. I'm sorry.
Now go ahead, Bismillah. Don't be sorry.
For the setting, like last time you asked us if I have a class, I will be the presenter and no one will enter unless I am in the meeting. Do we do something in settings like today? Me and two teachers, we were in the meeting before you as an admin.
Yeah.
So there's something in settings to give
So
me only the option to start the meeting.
Jazakallah khairan. So
Right.
because Jazakallah khair, يعني excellent question. I did not set this as يعني you're all teachers, mashallah alaikum. I did not set this that I'm a teacher and you're students. I set this as we're a team. The default when you are creating there you go. Bismillah. The default when you are creating, so I'm going back here. If I'm going to Google Classroom and I'm creating a course, every course is going to have its own private. If every course is going to have its own private link, Meet link, right? And so if any of you join this, here you go. I'm gonna. Let's try it. You know what? I will be defiant. If any of you try to join this while I'm not in the class, you would not be able to, because this is a Meet for classrooms. And my understanding, back when I looked at them, they just released these back in June, so it's only been there for 2 months. This new feature. So they're classroom integrated Google Meet sessions, and so why don't you go ahead and try to join this classroom that I just linked, and tell me if you're able to actually enter the classroom without me being in it.
Sheikh Majid, everyone will drop off if they do try linking to that.
Say again?
If
No,
you try joining
if we
that,
joined,
we're
I
leaving
have to
this meeting.
cancel this meeting. Yeah.
Oh, it actually kicks you out of the meeting. Oh, subhanallah.
Yes.
Subhanallah. Okay. I actually can join both. But I see Sister Sarah Salah entered. I could be wrong. I could be mistaken about if some settings needs to be put ahead of time. But Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So I'll look this up, inshallah ta'ala. Jazakumullah khairan for putting it. But yes, I don't want you to leave this room before we make the closing dua. I'll double check on this, but my understanding is that once you add them as students to the Google Classroom, then when they click on that Meet, they're not able to enter before you enter. But if you leave while they're still there, they will stay there, right? If you leave, like say I'll be back, and you leave the whole classroom and then you come back, they're still there. So basically the practice was put in the notes of Google that when the class is over, make sure you remove everyone from the class before you leave. Once you do that, then nobody can come back after you've left. Yeah. I hope that's clear, inshallah. I'll send the notes, I'll double check them, and I can have the answer more precise ready, inshallah, in the next meeting. Yes, Jazakallah khair. Also, if Sister Sarah, if you're able to find something, then let us know. Jazakumullah khair. So any last question, inshallah, or is it okay that we can conclude? Inshallah ta'ala, we will conclude then. Jazakumullah khairan. Please forgive me of any shortcomings. I hope this was beneficial. Again, just like the similar one, I will be sending a document, inshallah ta'ala. I'll make sure I send it shortly after this. I'll send it to your principals, and then they can forward it to you, inshallah ta'ala. So you'll have some feedback and some assignment for you to practice, and a link to the pre-recorded lecture that we are finishing now. So with that, inshallah ta'ala, we'll end. We'll meet again on Saturday for our final session. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. صلى الله تعالى سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام.
بارك الله يبارك فيكم. وعليكم السلام. مع السلامة.